time, hopefully with less technical difficulties. George, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Hasn't been that long. It's only been two minutes for us. Might have been a day or two for the audience. Let's get directly into the slides after that extended sidebar where you explained how you tie everything together and how other people fail to, more importantly.
Oh, yeah. It's a big deal. See, when I start writing this slide sets, there's so many prerequisites for each slide, actually, because I've been working on this thing for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what I mean by this, but you look at the comments and some people are just, well, people can't help but be totally lost. It's going to take a very long time to learn this. So anyway, the 5 power center and the 6 power center theories, the evolution of that may not be so difficult to understand, but all the other problems that are going on in the world and how they interface is a problem. Yeah, that is going to be more difficult. All right, so we start 106 is Rousseau, Marx, and Nietzsche. The Ukraine war has diminished both the Catholic Ukrainians in Europe and the Trump voters domestically simultaneously. Globalism of Marx is international socialism as opposed to nationalism of Nietzsche, and is necessarily for the abolition of both religion and ethnic nationalism. So you see that playing out in Ukraine now. 107, who controls Russian, Caspian, and Middle East petroleum reserves and delivery routes? Presently, the U.S. is in a proxy war with Ukraine that in one sense is over who controls the oil and gas pipelines as they enter Ukraine, Poland, Russia, and Belarus, as Russia, Iran, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan are all shifting their pipeline production to China. They've been doing that for a couple of decades now. As Russia's Eurasian Economic Union gains strength through the pipeline, railway, and highway infrastructure projects also. Let's go to 108, because I gave enough background information. We can slam through this now.
Excellent.
Turkey, the gateway to regional energy logistics. And not to be left out, Erdogan in Turkey has been pushing for a union of pan-Turkic states, which rests on a pipeline from Turkmenbashi to Baku under the Caspian Sea that Russia has been blocking to direct oil and gas shipments over its overland pipeline system instead. This is taking place across Eurasia, while the American politicians and citizenry are told that the narrative discussed by Wesley Clark in the previous section, that the U.S. is just spreading democracy and human rights, while also being told that Putin is crazy and irrational. They're hoping that people are completely unaware of the grand strategy theories that can now be updated in advanced PMISI, dime, and SWOT modeling, geopolitical, geostrategic, and geological resource reserve and logistical delivery maps in the context of current religious and ideological tensions in North America and Europe. So the ideological tensions, I'm talking about the movement from the old Protestantism of North America to agnosticism and atheism of Marx. Well, and then you throw in the New Left and the Frankfurt School, New Left, and Derrida and Foucault in there. So modern technology is taking a Haushofer Dugan. Okay, I spelled Dugan wrong. I got a spell check there. I think I got to undo spell check.
Yeah, it might have been auto.
Yeah, it's auto. So the dime integration is an inevitability. So in this one, I want to start moving towards the conclusion. We're at 10, so we got another 14 slides. The U.S. let the EU and Eastern Europe integrate without NATO, had the U.S. let the EU and Eastern Europe integrate without NATO, it is likely that the EU and Eastern Europe would have infrastructurally integrated with Russia. The gas is 1/7 the cost, and then the global center of gravity would have shifted from DC and UK to Berlin and Moscow. So I got that. You got the big map up there?
Yeah, yep.
Oh yeah. Just leave the map up there, because people need to see the map as we go through it. So that would have shifted the political global center of gravity, which would have See, this is interesting here. Which would have shifted the global political center of gravity, but it could have still followed Kennan's original 5 power center strategy in another sense, as if getting rid of communism is the goal and separating Russia from China is the goal. Because the global center of power would shift, but still you would have DC and UK that would be economically healthy, because now they're not economically healthy. And you would have a healthy Germany and Russia and everything in between, because German auto industry has been moving into Poland and Eastern Europe in between Russia and Germany anyway. So, I mean, if you just let that run, and you didn't have the Russian oligarchs trying to export their capital out of Russia, which Putin and the hardliners are reversing one way or the other, you still would have had a strong U.S., strong UK, strong Germany, and Russia enveloping China, but you would also be able to support India, South Korea, and Japan. So in that scenario, it would have been 2, 4, 6 against China, enveloping it. I think I'll stop there. I think we'll go over the next slide, because I start to get to the obvious conclusions, because we're talking about what are the industrial power centers here. I've been talking about 6. I kind of did a combination between Kennan's original 5 power center doctrine in 47 with the updated version in the 1950s to my 6 power center version that I did on the Felix Rex show and here several times. But this is kind of a combination of all of that. So you get US, UK, Germany, Russia, India, South Korea, and Japan. So in this case, it would be an 8 power center, with China being 8. It would be an 8 power center strategy. It would have been 7 against 1. In the Bracken videos, I was talking about the way we're going about it now. You're going to have a diminished US economy, a diminished UK, a diminished Western Europe against a growing, stronger Russia, India, and Russia, China integration. So that would be, I don't say an integrated triangle, because India and China don't like each other. And they never are. You would have integrated Russia and India and integrated Russia and China, but China can't be too provocative against India because they got 1 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to start a war with India with 1 billion people and have tensions against the United States. So, I mean, they're going to have a détente there, no matter what. And since the United States has chosen its policy to try to destabilize Central Asia and destabilize Eastern Europe by the war in Ukraine, continually moving NATO east, trying to take over the Black Sea Fleet and the Rostov-on-Don port is what that's about. Discussed that 100 times already. Then it's going to be a week in North America, a week in Western Europe against a growingly strong Russia, India, Russia, China relationship, where if there is a conflict in the South China Sea and South Korea and Japan cannot get oil shipments because they can't get through a war zone effectively, their alternative is to build a Hokkaido Sakhalin and get all their oil supplies from straight across the bay in Vladivostok or the Sea of Okhotsk area up near the Kuril Islands. They don't have to go to the Middle East. So I'm just pointing out that Japan and South Korea, they're kind of sitting on the fence on this one. They don't want to get in, they don't want to get into another World War III. The first 2 were enough. Or, the Second World War, I should say, was enough. And the Manchurian Wars and the different Japanese invasions. I guess I'm substituting that as World War I here, but they'd rather sit World War III out, and all they have to do is just send their ships straight across the bay, get their oil from Russia, come right back home, and their economy can prosper. There's no reason for them to get involved. There really isn't. So when I start talking about, again, everything I do is the SMART goals. Everything's got to be, specific, measurable, achievable, and done in a time-oriented fashion, right? So the framework I use here is an 8 power center framework. I just want people to count under what conditions each power center might align or might not align. So as we're going forward, people could have a scoreboard to watch, because I have to have everything measurable. I'm kind of obsessive with that.
and we're grateful, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have gotten this far.
Yeah, I have to know what the score is. Well, most men do. I mean, in fighter planes, they spent a whole bunch of money on putting cameras in every single plane. Now they say it's for intelligence, but fighter pilots trying to shoot each other down want verifiable proof that they have a kill or an escape.
Yeah.
So it's intelligence, right? No, men keep score. We have to keep score about everything we do. The day after the first bicycle was made, the guy down the street built a second bicycle, and then the next day they were racing. I mean, it's just the way we are.
Highly likely. Yeah, highly likely.
Okay, so on slide 112 now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, so 6 power centers against 1 or 2 power centers against 4. I just throw it out there, or is it going to be 7 against 1? I just want people to start being able to see how this, as the Ukraine war goes forward, if the United States gets overextended, I want people to be flexible, not tunnel visioned, so they can see how it shapes up. Because okay, let me go into it. I got to go into another sidebar. Sorry, a guy on LinkedIn, as a young guy, and I don't mean to get snippy with a young guy, because I was 30 years old at one time too. So he was talking about how everything hinges on Japan. That they're going to be the key to Western salvation, and hemming in China. I don't mean Western salvation. I'm being hyperbolic there, but he starts talking about, you got to use Japan and South Korea to hem in the Russians. And I just shot back. I was like, because this is just a ridiculous argument. They only started increasing their defense budget a little bit last year, and then more this year. So it's going to take years for that to actually come to fruition. So it's not going to happen in a timely manner to really matter. B, are you sure they're going to use their military against the U.S.? I mean for the U.S., or is it to kick the bases out of Okinawa? How are they going to use it? Don't be so sure that they're going to jump in and have World War III and just ruin their society, complete economic collapse, can completely finish off their society, just so Wolfowitz and the PNAC crowd can achieve some kind of goal. They already see that what the United States did in the Middle East. They already see what's going on in Ukraine. The Ukrainians are already fighting down to the last Ukrainian. Are the Japanese going to fight down to the last Japanese? I think they've been through that already. I don't think they want to go through it again. I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking at a way to switch sides and get out of this. I'm just saying. Same thing with South Korea.
Wasn't that Prime Minister of Japan, or whatever they're called, that was assassinated recently, pro-Russian?
Well, he's pro-Russian oil and gas.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that.
Well, again, I realize we're going off on another sides here, but it's really important. We were talking to the MBAs in our other Telegram channel. One of them was bringing up how the 1997 crash was done on purpose to bring Japan back to earth, because during the 80s, okay, I already went over Clyde Prestowitz's book, Trading Places, and Robert Reich's book, New Deals, about the hollowing out of the United States economy. And Japan is surging ahead. And so a lot of people think that the markets were rigged to crash the Japanese growth to keep them in check. You know, I have no idea if that's true or not. I just throw it out there just for something for people to think about, because it certainly is in the Japanese psyche. So again, it's over the petrodollar and Middle East dependency on oil. So if they can get oil from another source and pay in another currency, you have a tremendous yoke taken off of their necks. And that's kind of, I don't want to speak for Abe. Obviously I never met the guy, but I think the reason why he was assassinated is more along those lines than the narrative. I don't know. We're being conspiracy theorists again. So the advantage of the scenario is that a strong North America and a strong Europe would have allowed the U.S. to focus on containing China in the Indo-Pacific, and had the use of Russia's tremendous oil and gas reserves in the process to keep South Korea and Japan in our camp instead of giving them reasons to leave our camp. All right, so overextending Russia, competing from advantageous ground. That's the name of the longer. Well, I kind of mixed up the two names of the two Rand articles. One's competing from extending Russia, competing from advantageous ground, and the other one, the shorter one, was overextending and unbalancing Russia. Yeah, I kind of mangled the titles there a little bit. Oh, well. I just now saw that.
You've spent many late nights working on the slide set, so all mistakes are forgiven.
Yeah, but we went over that in the other videos. So as it stands now, the Ukraine army is grossly attrited, since it's always a plan of PNAC to get rid of both the Catholic Ukrainian nationalists and to overextend Russia at the same time. But it doesn't look like Russia's being overextended. They're just getting rid of the far-right Ukrainians.
Oh, George froze. George?
And 130 trillion in unfunded mandates
stop.
of Great Society programs. Stop. We've been shipping our jobs offshore for the past 40 years.
We missed you from.
Let's go to 114.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Because you cut out for a bit, and then you came back. Fighting to the last Ukrainian was the last thing that was clear, and then the sentence after that, we missed the first half.
Oh, okay. I'll just do 113 over again then.
All right, if you want to, yeah. Just a second half.
But as it stands now, the Ukraine army is grossly attrited, since it was always the plan of PNAC to get rid of the Catholic Ukrainian nationalists and to overextend Russia, as the Rand slide sets and videos discussed in the previous videos. But it does not look like Russia is going to be overextended. It looks like the U.S. is $31 trillion in debt and $130 trillion in unfunded New Deal and Great Society programs, while the United States has been deindustrializing for the last 40 years. That's the current situation.
Yep.
So we get to 114, is it? Yeah, 114. The U.S., an atheistic, bankrupt welfare state with lazy millennials. That's the situation we're in. So now the U.S. has spread too thin. Russia and China have integrated infrastructure for a couple of decades now. That's accelerated immensely since the 2014 Euromaidan coup, as Mearsheimer and Cohen referred to it. And there in the slide, I always refer to that. Aaron Mattei Stephen Cohen interview several years ago. Going to 115. So we got what, nine more slides left. Modern monetary theory, the new deity, as long as the petrodollar system lasts. Yeah, it's, the idea that we can run endless deficits. Yeah, that came up during the Reagan administration. It started to take hold. The old school people like myself, didn't really think it could last forever. It has lasted longer than I thought, because Peter Schiff has been saying the crash is right around the corner for 10 years now or whatever, maybe 15 out. And one of these days he's going to eventually be right. So again, with my models, I start talking about intersection points and what's likely to collapse. And the commodities prices is making the fourth world failed states into a cascading set of, making third world countries into a cascading series of fourth world failed states is what I'm predicting. So I'm predicting more fourth world failed states because of the increase in commodities and increase of inflation from the petrodollar system, because we're exporting our inflation overseas. So for those reasons, you get more fourth world failed states in Africa. Well, Sri Lanka already went down. A bunch of people already start arguing that, well, okay, Central America has been nothing but fourth world failed states for a long time now. A lot of people argue that the United States has something to do with that too. It certainly didn't help. But I always focus on the economic growth, population growth ratios as being the cause of poverty. People say that there's poor countries, but they never define poor. It's when economic growth is being outpaced by population growth. That's the definition. So there really is no such thing as poor countries. There's grossly overpopulated countries, or at least the rates of change.
Yeah.
So in this video, I show Andy Schectman discussing, okay, he's a financial guy. He's focused on one area, but it's these people that are focused in different areas, because I'm an overarching theorist linking several different disciplines. So I look at specialists in each field. I know that the global wage labor rate is plummeting because population growth is growing in logarithmic. Economic growth is still in a linear. So with that occurring, the pressures that he can't see that I can see is that you're going to get, if you get a cascading set of failures in Latin America and in Africa, well, then you're going to start seeing tens of millions of people north. We're already seeing that, the desperation of people coming north. But the Doctors Without Borders and some of those people are going to say, they act like we're just going to get a few million here and there. No, the numbers that you're start talking about is millions a year that never stop. So you're talking about, you're starting to talk about 50 or 60 million in reality. Yeah, and that's going to swap our system. And okay, so what would a bipolar world look like? Moving to 116. This scenario, the global political center of gravity is likely to shift east-west bipolar scenario, where Russia and China and Russia and India form blocks, and South Korea and Japan are at risk of being cut off from oil emanating from the Middle East and the Indo-Pacific. There's also lots of oil reserves in Indonesia, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Borneo, and the Papua New Guinea area. So they would, in the event of a Chinese war against the United States, Chinese war against Australia, that whole area is going to be not conducive to ship traffic. That would just crater the economies of South Korea and Japan. Killing, then you're talking about killing tens of millions of starvation. You're cut off from food and fuel during the winter. So then what would their option be? Well, just get it from Russia. It's right across the bay. It's perfectly safe. So some of these things that you can are really obvious if you know what to look for. Well, okay, once people watch this video, they're going to know what to look for because I got a map of it right there.
Right.
Okay, let's go to 117. Opportunity cost lost on Russian integration with Russia and spreading economic and political power among North America and Northern Europe in a Western coalition would have supported its Pacific Rim and ASEAN countries surrounding China. All right. So in this slide, I'm not just saying we could have supported South Korea and Japan, but we could have supported India, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia also. As it stands now, Modi is very angry at the way we left Afghanistan because we not only armed the Sunni Wahhabi extremists once, we came back and we did it twice and left it in chaos. India's mad. They'll go in joint league with the United States and the AUKUS countries, Five Eyes countries against China, but they're also going to deal with Russia. And they make that known to the United States. They're not double dealing anybody. They're not being deceitful. They're being straightforward. You know, I watched Palki Sharma on Lion News, and now she's over on First Post. I got to throw that in there. So it's the point of this slide is it's not just South Korea and Japan, but the smaller ASEAN countries also that China is definitely trying to bring into its Belt and Road program. Again, the Silk Road program is about to internalize logistical supply routes. The Belt and Road program is to try to shorten the distance that ships, oil ships or cargo ships can get from, say, Africa or Indonesia into the closest Asian port and offload either into a pipeline or onto a railroad. So to mitigate the extent that the U.S. Navy can interdict them. That's their goal. That's the difference between the Silk Road program and the Belt and Road Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to 118. We're getting close, almost done. This would be like a 6-hour compilation of
6? I think it's closer to 17 hours already, man.
Well, I have no idea. Well, I just sit there and I just do this all day, every day, basically. Or am I just talking? No, I mean just 7 hours for part 3 alone.
Oh, okay, yeah. That way, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. Sometimes I overlap, but you don't know who's joining in and didn't see the other ones. You got to overlap a little bit, and if you don't overlap at all, the people that didn't watch the videos complain. If you overlap too much, the people that watched every single video, then they complain. So, I'm trying to find a balance, but I don't know what the balance is. Anyway, getting back
to all the complainers, imagine what it's like for me. I'm not even. I'm not even including the outtakes. You know?
Yeah, we're working on a very low budget. We got other jobs to do. We got other things we got to do, and we're trying to squeeze this in the best we can. So everything's getting copyrighted, time and date stamped. So it's the lowest production value ever. We totally get it. That's why we just laugh through this because what else do you do? Let's see, 118. Slide 118. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the opportunity costs of the Rand Doctrine. A Western coalition that incorporated the Russian Federation would have spread the power out from Washington, New York, London, Brussels, Berlin, and Moscow, but there would have been no war in Ukraine. And the reality is that Western sanctions against Russia are backfiring. They've been preparing for this for a long time. And since Russia has been preparing for a divorce from the West fervently since the 2014 Maidan Revolution, when basically the U.S. and NATO tried to take over their Crimean Black Sea Fleet. Mm-hmm. I wonder why that would cause a war.
Because Putin is unprovoked. Link
Yeah.
up here.
And if you look at a map and you know where stuff is, like pipelines, petrodollars, ports, and naval bases, then all of a sudden it becomes the reasons become readily apparent.
It's the lack of
Which is why,
democracy. It's the lack of
yeah,
democracy.
yeah. So the effect of extending Russia, again referencing the 394-page Rand report,
Mm-hmm.
a neutral free trade agreement that allowed Ukraine to trade freely in all directions, both east and west, would have greatly been preferable to the current situation and the plan to get rid of the Ukrainian far right nationalists and the Orthodox Russians as a plan to operationalize Rousseau and get rid of both Christianity and nationalism in the region as currently planned, because that is the plan. Like I said, my undergraduate degree, I had my constitutional law professors were incremental socialists. I already know how they plan to alter the Constitution over time. And when you start to use the Supreme Court as a super legislature, again, when you look back at the early books of Plato, he starts talking about what is justice first. Then they start talking about an enduring state. The preferable states don't last very long because each 10 years, people start changing the Constitution little bit by little bit. And after a couple of generations, the Constitution no longer, the laws of the land no longer resemble the original founding fathers' laws of the land. So the Greeks talked about that, 600 BC, and nothing's changed. The Fabian socialists are the incrementalist socialists. Marx was a revolutionary socialist, communist. That's the difference. One wants to get there through the democratic process. The other one wants to just say it won't happen, or it'll be stuck at an in-between state and won't ever get there. So they got to have a violent revolution. So there's a whole bunch of demarcations between leftist groups and moderate. There's a whole bunch of gradations between center left and far left. All right, let's go to 120.
Mm-hmm.
Effect of extending Russia. All right, yeah, this is just a discussion because a lot of people just don't know where to find the information. Okay, the people on the Telegram channels, we've been throwing this information up all year long. This is one of the Max Blumenthal Aramate videos from, let's see, so July 6, 2018. I got the date up there. The title of the article that they're talking about, I can't see who wrote it, but the title of it is Israel's arming neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Israel is arming Ukraine's blatantly neo-Nazi militia and the Azov battalion. Again, why would you want to do that? Well, if you want to kill both sides off, then that's why you would do that. So they're not killing they're not arming the Nazis because they not want the Nazis to win. They just want us to start a war so both sides die. It's like starting a food fight and then walking out of the room and then everybody else gets in trouble when you're in grade school. It's the same thing. Okay, the Israelis are also active in the South Caucasus and Armenia and in Azerbaijan, because they would love to see the Armenians and Azerbaijan get into a war, because if the Azerbaijanis can take over the Zengezur corridor or just any corridor, they just need to build a pipeline. Then the Israelis can get their oil and gas from the Azeris instead of the Arabs. They would prefer that. So there's a whole bunch of really dirty tricks going on in the world. Again, I've been to most of these countries. We got everybody in the world on the Telegram channel to update us in the local regions. So, that's where this information comes from. It's readily available.
Yep, it is out in the open.
Yeah, if you know where to look. We go to 121. Protests in Germany and the Netherlands. The reality now is that protests in Germany and the German world, because of course, I want to throw in Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and Austria in there, are growing since Seymour Hersh article and the Nordstream sabotage is gaining traction as the most plausible answer. Yeah, it's the obvious answer. Anybody that's followed my Telegram knew that we were waiting for Germany to switch sides once it got cold out, and what was the United States was going to do to prevent it, because the United States has got to protect the petrodollar. They've been doing that forever, blowing up pipelines. We already talked about Alfred Herrhausen being assassinated because he signed the deal to bring gas from East Germany, DDR, into West Germany. It blew up the pipeline. Well, they blew it up with actually corrupted software to overpressurize the pipes and explode them inside Russia. Kind of ingenious, got to understand. But they then later on they killed Alfred Herrhausen, and it was blamed on the Baader-Meinhof group, which that video comes out now. It's kind of absurd. Oh, and they even go back now and retroactive history, and they say, well, hey, it just happens that Putin was in the KGB and in the DDR at the time, so he was obviously behind it because he was within 1,000 miles of the blast, right?
Yes. Time traveling Russian propaganda. One of our best hits here.
Yeah. So what I wrote on LinkedIn, and I moved it over to the Telegram channel. So I was traveling. I wrote I wrote, again, we were looking for what the United States was going to do about it on the Telegram page. So I woke up, and the people in Europe and Australia who already heard about it before I woke up had already just filled my Telegram page with that, so I could comment on it immediately. It was the petrodollar. That's what we were expecting. That was the move to keep everybody in the petrodollar. I was traveling at the time, so it took me a couple of days to go home. So what's in the yellow part of that slide set? You got the slide? You got 121 up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So the yellow part of that is I wrote up. Oh, okay. I got it right there. It's September 29th. Okay, I dated it. So because I just said, I'm trying to be as diplomatic as possible on LinkedIn because people are going to freak out. Well, people don't know about pipelines and petrodollars. They have no idea. I written reports about them since 2011. No, 2012, I started writing reports on them. So Saddam attacked when he wanted to trade in euros and abandon the petrodollar. A similar situation with Gaddafi, and a similar situation with Bashar Assad in Syria, actually, because those pipelines go from Baghdad to Damascus. But anyway, in this case, the German automotive industry, BASF, and the enormous petrochemical industries, Bosch, and the rest of the consumer appliance industries, Schindler, ThyssenKrupp, Siemens, Leica, we're all lobbying the German government for bilateral trade with Russia to keep their industrial economy going, while the German people in Lebanon and elsewhere were protesting in favor of bilateral trade with Russia in a non-dollar currency. They wanted just to go ahead and pay in euro and set up a euro-rubles exchange. So there's growing pressure in Germany to abandon U.S. sanctions and switch sides and trade in euros and rubles for Russian Nordstream gas before winter. Then the pipeline blew up. Oh, okay. And I make a wise ass comment. I'm going to stay up all night to figure out who wanted to stop the democratic process from playing out in Germany. All right. So then you move to 122. I got my rest of my quote there in yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Someone wanted to take the bilateral non-dollar trade agreement between Germany and Russia completely off the table as fall and winter are approaching and a bilateral deal becomes more likely. Someone wanted to make sure that Germany did not strike a deal with Russia and then supply Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Austria, and the Danube River countries with Russian gas. The German oil and gas pipeline network is really dense inside Germany, and it goes to all the other countries. It can feed all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, someone wanted to make sure that Germany and Central Europe could not exit the petrodollar trading system. Instead, someone wants Western and Central Europe to follow a Green New Deal deindustrialization program while selling them LNG at a much higher price, while putting the German automakers out of work to punish them. We need Sherlock Holmes to figure this out. Maybe Robert Downey Jr. can help us out here. Again, it's on.
It's like like you knew you were going to be on a comedy show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is. I think, who was it? Oh, I was listening to Seymour Hersh as I was riding around on my motorcycle. My Bluetooth,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I listened to some of his videos, and he was talking about a lot of this. So he doesn't know the pipeline and petrodollar angle. I'm answering the who and the why. His articles answer the who and specifics on the how.
Mm-hmm.
But again, so many people don't know about the pipelines and the petrodollars in the area and what it means to economic development or deindustrialization and global cost competitiveness and all of that. And if gas goes to Germany and then they get money, and then Germany can sell them more cars, then the industries start to move from Germany east when they start building their different parts suppliers and things like that. So you're talking about the infrastructural integration, but then you're talking about a growing, dense economic integration. So when you start talking about why the pivot had to be done now, the Wesley Clark series of videos, we showed the one, but there's other ones. He starts talking about how Wolfowitz and those people are saying they got a window of a certain amount of time to do this in, where Russia can't fight back. So obviously we're outside that window now. So, and as that window is closing, the pivot from Afghanistan, return to the Operation Cyclone destabilization program, pivot to Ukraine, start a war there, thinking they were betting the farm that Russia was going to collapse in 3 to 6 months. Well, we're 1 year into this. The integration between Russia and China is stronger. The integration between Russia and India is stronger. And I think that Malaysia and Indonesia and ASEAN countries are tending towards Russia and China because of the other color revolutions and other problems.
And let's not forget about Saudi Arabia and Iran joining BRICS, basically.
Yeah, that's an interesting development lately that we're not going to get into now.
yeah, maybe in 2-3 months when we get around to it.
yeah, we got a lot of stuff stacked up. No, we'll get into that beforehand, but anyway, prior to the Nordstream explosion on 26, Germany had the choice of either paying in euros and rubles or facing rising energy prices that will make its industrial sector uncompetitive and therefore permanently destroying the German industrial economy in a Henry Morgenthau plan, not to be confused with Hans Morgenthau, Politics of Nation, and the dual state theorist. It's a different Morgenthau. He was Secretary of State. Yeah, so let's, by immediately the Nord Stream blew up. It's the same old reason. Once you know the pipeline petrodollar, it's easy. I didn't write it up until the 29th, but anyway,
Backfiring.
let's go to there's backfiring, and then there's really backfiring. So now we're getting more closer to a scenario where it doesn't look like it's going to turn out too well for the BNAC crowd or the United States. Oh well. Again, I got to go by numbers. In this map, I know I talked about the original 5 power center doctrine and the 6 power center doctrine to stick with the majors. But here I got, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, okay. So this is, I shifted this to an 8 center power center place because it's just easier to count the numbers up. So now, I'll just read the slide. In another sense, as anti-NATO protests are likely to increase in the Visegrad countries, except for Poland, has a possibility that the German and Slavic world backlash alliance could conceivably lead to an integration with Russia as energy prices and inflation soar and living standards sink. All right. There's different people that talk about the winter wasn't that cold. Some people have thrown that in on our Telegram channel that it wasn't that cold in Europe this year. It wasn't so bad. So there's a mixed bag of what's occurring. And other people say, well, the winter wasn't that bad. And they had stored up enough underground gas this year. So they dodged a bullet. They got through this winter. Yeah. But then the big question mark on just a bunch of different shows, a bunch of people are talking about it, is, well, what happens next winter? Mm-hmm. Because those underground gas reserves are going to be gone from cheap Russian gas. And how are you going to replace that with gas 7 times the price in LNG? So now the Russian, again, the courses of action that we're discussing on Telegram for the whole year. Mm-hmm. Well, the ones that we discussed also in the Russian strategic plan is Germany's the big pivot point here. We've been talking about this since May or whenever I threw up the first A through J plan. I think it's an A through P plan because it's progressed. The Germany's still the pivot here. If Germany flip-flops, it's not just Germany that's going to flip-flop. It's going to be the Slavic countries too. So the United States has to keep, basically they're using NATO to hold them hostage. You got Poland, they're using the Polish ethnic rivalries against Russia and the Western Ukrainian, Catholic Orthodox divide to divide Russia as that cordon sanitaire in Speakman terms to separate Russia from the other Slavic countries from Western Europe. But if and those two countries aren't really going to go away, but still Russia can send us gas through Turkey into Bulgaria and Southern Europe through Greece, another Orthodox country, and then all of Europe is supplied, and then Russia would have completely gotten around the Baltic states, Poland, and Ukraine. So I just throw this stuff out there so people can look at a map and see how the pipelines are running, because then Turkey becomes a big pivotal match, because Russia might need to send its gas through Turkey. It might be able to send the stuff underneath the Caspian Sea, but then it's got to clear out NATO. Iran wants to send its gas to Armenia and Georgia. And guess where there's a 1-to-1 correlation between wherever there's a pipeline, railway, or port project
They need Russia, democracy.
China. By
Human
Russia,
rights.
China, or Turkey, there just happens to be a massive protest with the fans flamed by Western media. Just every single place that you look on the map. And again, that's all on our Telegram page.
You're seeing things, George. It's not really like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second backfiring slide, 124.
Yeah, so 124. So if the current neocon coup that Wesley Clark discussed, we're talking about the policy coup that Wesley Clark was talking about, stops to stop the German-Russian integration, might actually bring the integration about in the worst of both worlds. Meaning, if this backfires, not only does Russia integrate with India and China, and then possibly pick up South Korea and Japan, they might also pick up Germany, the German world, and the Slavic worlds. Mm-hmm. So, again, I want people to look at the 8 different power centers I got up here so you can start counting. So if something happens and it starts to break one way or the other, they know how to recalculate. Okay, this is the 8 power center map. You can start counting the numbers and know what the score is.
Got it.
Yeah. So where do we end at? We're at. Yeah, I forgot how many slides this.
We're going to 129. That was the original plan.
Okay. Yeah. So we got. I forgot how many slides are in this.
Backfiring into Haushofer. Maybe I'll learn how to pronounce his name.
Oh, Haushofer? Yeah. Oh, I spelled Dugan. I spelled Dugan right on this slide set.
Shh. You mean the philosopher who will not be named?
Yeah.
It's the most evil person on earth after Putin. It's Putin's brain.
Yeah. We joke around about it because his book on geopolitics is just it's just a book on geopolitics. He's just looking at a map, just like Zbinsinski did, and then Speakman and Mackinder before him, and just like Kennan did. I mean, it's not only English people that can read maps. Everybody else can read a map also. and he's the evil person.
The English just like to draw lines on them, like the Sykes-Picot,
And, that's why this is a comedy show, because once you know what these theories and strategies are, once you know what's under the hood, so to speak, it's laughably hypocritical, to say the least. So, I mean, if 2 football teams are winning, one wins, the other one loses. They're not evil. It's not.
Of course they're evil. Of course they're evil.
Well, okay, to some of my friends, they think that in terms of Manchester United and Manchester City, but other than that, well, maybe it is the same. I guess I don't know.
I'm not that into football. I like geopolitical football better. Let's stick to the script. Let's put it that way. We're already 53 minutes into this, and we're almost done. So let's get it pumped out. It's been a long.
Yeah, if this occurred, if this occurred, 8 to 10 countries would exit the petrodollar. The decline of the U.S. would likely to follow, which is to say, in geopolitical theory, that Haushofer, Dugan, there I spelled Dugan wrong again. Oh my God. So dime integration might still be inevitable. So yeah, this can backfire, and then you count the different industrial centers, how they line up, but then that would turn out in geostrategic theory to be a Haushofer Dugan dime integration.
Yeah.
And of course, I use dime integration or PMISI. Dime is diplomatic, infrastructural, military, economic. PMISI is political, military, economic, social, infrastructural. They're instruments of national power. It's how you measure national power. And again, the more you know about economic development and growth theories, the easier understanding dime analysis is.
Yeah.
And if you don't know economic, political growth theories, then you're going to be lost in this whole conversation.
It's good you said it.
Well, yeah, and there's no way to get around it. You have a degree in economics, and the other people we talk to have MBAs. I have MBAs, and I've studied the other disciplines a long time. So, it's easy for me. I have degrees in international political economy also, or concentrations, I should say. So it's easy for me. Anyway. Oh, all right. So the India Civil Service exams mandate Operation Cyclone history. Again, I didn't invent this. Operation Cyclone's on Wikipedia. The Indian News has it on their video, and this one in videos all over the place, because they had to deal with the United States Army and they got to deal with them up in Jammu and
No,
Am I,
you're good.
am I still
Yeah,
there?
you're good. You're good. You're good.
You got me?
It popped out for a second, but you're good.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks. So, yeah, the Indians had to deal with Pakistani terrorists, largely Pashtun, in Jammu and in Kashmir. So I've worked with tons of people that were in the Indian Army up in Srinagar and Jammu and Kashmir, all those places, and Gilgit up in the north.
Hmm.
So they're sick of dealing with that since Operation Cyclone in the late 70s with Zbigniew Brzezinski and Stansfield Turner under the Carter administration. The very young. Back then it would have been Elliot Abrams and that crowd. But it would be a very young Wolfowitz and Cheney and Rumsfeld crowd back then. But they were learning from the other Cold Warrior people. So in the present situation, a weakened U.S. may still be in Europe. Germany and Germany may be down. Germany and the German world may be down. Russia may be out of Europe, but the real contest is shifting to Central Asia as the Russian Federation, Eurasian Economic Union, the Shanghai Cooperation Council Organization, and the Pan-Turkic Union all vie for power in the region. As Anthony Blinken tours the area to stay relevant in the region after unleashing numerous Sunni Wahhabi Dibandist VEOs in the region. Okay, I need to word that a little bit better, but
it's often referred to as the Charmless Offensive by Anthony Blinken.
Yeah, so he went. Yeah, you have the Silk Road project going from the late 90s to early 2000s, and it really intensified. The Russians were trying to become part of Europe because they're Europe. The Russians have always wanted to be accepted in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like they've been rejected by, the love of their unrequited love of their life over and over again, because they're not Asian. They want to be part of Europe, but now they got to integrate with Asia anyway. So, they're going to be happy with that decision. It's not even their decision more. They're compelled into that decision. So, Russia's integrating North-South now, especially since after the inclusion of Georgia in 2007, where the United States put billions of dollars to back Saakashvili. That was the last straw for Russia. Basically, they started integrating North-South. So you got Russia and China, but Turkey is trying to go across the Caspian region and link up with the Turkic states.
Mm-hmm.
So those three entities are vying for power, but since China is such a big powerhouse and is trying to put his shipping cargo through Turkey, Turkey can make money from China. Same thing with Russia, with goods going back and forth. So Russia and China are trying to pull them in their orbit, but they're trying to get into Central Asia too. So with those three working out a deal basically to control Central Asia, it appears like, and I don't want to get sued, so
one could
you don't
say
know for sure.
Some crazy homeless person told you.
Yeah, it would seem like these Mujahideen organizations, like Hillary Clinton said, the people that were fighting now, when she was Secretary of State, talking to Congress is what I mean.
Yeah.
The people that we're fighting now are the people we funded 20 years ago. Well, now these same organizations are threatening to blow up the Russian and Chinese infrastructure in that region, and or potential Turkish infrastructure in that region.
Mm-hmm.
These groups, the Pashtun, do not like the Turks because of the earlier invasions into Afghanistan. Okay, everybody's invaded Afghanistan, but so the Pashtuns don't like anybody. They, when Turkey volunteered to guard the airport in August of 2021, the Taliban absolutely refused, but welcomed economic assistance of the Turkic countries to ship out their minerals in, well, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan.
Mm-hmm.
But they did not want any Turkish troops to stay in Kabul. So they wanted an arm's length relationship with Turkey, but they don't want to push them totally away. They want to do some business, but because of past Turkic invasions into Afghanistan, they don't want them too close, but they don't want to push them away either. Because Afghanistan has got to deal with the Turkic Islamic countries in the north as Russia's dealing with them, as China's dealing with them, and as Turkey is trying to come across and build ports and pipelines underneath the Caspian. Russia's been blocking them so far, but we'll see how this deal goes through, because Russia might need to send its pipelines from the North Caucasus down through Dagestan into Baku through Azerbaijan. Either, okay, they're not going to go through Georgia now, probably not. So that means where's the pipelines have to go through? They got to go through Armenia into Turkey. So things are, again, where is the United States putting this big emphasis in staging its democratic protests right now in Georgia and Armenia? Well, not protests, but they're trying to align
freedom rallies.
Yeah.
Anti-Russian propaganda law protests, I think, is what they are.
Right. So the freedom rallies just happen to be exactly where either existing pipelines are or planned rerouted pipelines would be, because if you reroute the pipelines, you're rerouting the profits, you're rerouting the geopolitical strength, because you're changing those instruments of national power.
Yeah.
All right. Again, I want to put everything back to Mises dime language, because people are like, what somebody talking about, I was dealing with obscure theories. No, these are the Clausewitzian instruments of national power, of how you measure diplomatic and military power.
Yeah.
Again, people that understand economic development theory and growth theories are going to get this way faster than people that don't.
And we've already said that, like, they're obscure for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, they're intentionally left unturned by the powers that be.
Yeah. But you can take these courses and buy the books at any university system.
Yeah.
It's just hardly anything else. Or take existing courses and use it a different way.
I just got to say, before you go on, that when you sent me these slides and when I was looking through them before we went live, this one about the Indian civil service exams that mandate the history, that one was a shocker to me, because I had no idea. That's crazy that like the government teaches them right off the bat.
Oh yeah. Over the summer, the different Indians. Well, I won't. I'm not going to name their call signs, but yeah. But you know who I'm talking about. The different Indians in the group. Where we talked about that a few times.
Yeah.
We talked about that. Well, that and my girl Palki Sharma. Okay. So, they have a whole bunch of these. They have a whole bunch of these things, of these videos. Operation Cyclone.
Mm-hmm.
Why does the U.S. fund terrorist organizations? Why does the U.S. fund ISIS? Why does the U.S. fund Al Qaeda? I mean, they all give them these names. They got to change the title name a little bit, but they have a whole bunch of these names, and they're part of the civil service exam. And yeah, okay, I'm sure the United States says it's propaganda, except for the fact that
Declassified
this
documents.
well, no, speaking of Brzezinski's interviews are right on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, there's that too.
Yeah. Well, I posted them up in the other slides. So
Mm-hmm.
it's again the information is cross-referenced, and the more you understand the Grand Mosque seizure in 1979 in Mecca, and the bid to for the Arabs to fuse with the Pashtun because they're believed to be 6 of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, because they're trying to put the sons of Abraham's together that are Islamic to pivot against, the against Israel ultimately.
Yeah.
All right, so we only got a couple more left. Oh wait,
Yeah.
well, only 2 more left.
Exactly.
All right, okay, so American delusionalism. Yeah, okay, this is Stephen Cohen with Christian Amanpour. All right, look, I would absolutely, from being from New York, to want us to see the Rangers win every Stanley Cup every year. But it's delusional to think that it's going to happen at all. They win the Stanley Cup once every 54 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, Christian Amanpour so gladly wants the one world government with no religion, no ethnicities, and it's just not going to happen. All right.
She got her big break during the '90s bombing of Yugoslavia, and then went on to go to the Middle East as well. So whenever you see Christian Amanpour, in my opinion, you know there's something fishy going on. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Anyway,
She was in Egypt when they took down Mubarak as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was a long time ago. Yeah, with yeah. So anyway, yeah. So here she is again. She goes after Stephen Cohen. So yeah, the only people who don't realize the duplicity of American foreign policy are the people who do not travel outside the United States and listen to Western cable news funded by big finance, big oil, big pharma, big tech, and staffed by the latest generation of the woke left who abandons the scientific method in favor of utopian socialism or utopian idealism. It depends on which group you're talking about. You give it a slightly different, nuanced title, but I'm gonna, we'll nuance the different interest groups later on down the road. Right now, I'm gonna lump them in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Stephen Cohen there is talking about. They don't go into the pipelines and petrodollars, but he does start talking about moving NATO east. Shouldn't have done that. It could have been a neutral zone. It could have been a neutral zone.
Yeah.
And Russia's sensitivities in Crimea because the Black Sea Fleet's there. He doesn't get into the port and economic and shipping aspects like I do, but he gets into the nitty gritty of the Ukrainian Catholic versus Orthodox Christian Russian speaking areas. He gets into that extensively.
Mm-hmm.
Gets into the history of the negotiations extensively, and he talks about the EU association bait and switch in his book, where it was supposed to be a free trade agreement both ways with no NATO standards clause. Instead, Yanukovych in November 2013 is handed an EU association agreement that's no trade to the East, which would destroy its economy. Mm-hmm. They don't care. Only trade to the West. And it has an extensive NATO standards clause. So, of course, they knew that Yanukovych was gonna read the deal and realize it's not what he verbally agreed to in the negotiations and reject it. Mm-hmm. And they already had the Euromaidan revolution on speed dial because all the Silicon Valley companies were already there since 2004 because they had all those. They had a lot of malicious software problems and ransomware problems. Mm-hmm. So basically Google, Symantec, all these companies moved in to do forensic studies on the area. So all the ISPs flow through the Silicon Valley big tech firms that also have offices in Northern Virginia between McLean and Dulles, that Reston corridor. So they're all funded by United States government, of course. They were originally DARPA funded, one way or the other. They're DARPA funded. So yeah, 100% of Ukrainian internet and cell phone communications basically goes through American defense industry tech. I'm just throwing that in there as a little aside. In other words, they know everything that everybody wrote in that country all the time.
Crazy guy on the subway told you, huh?
Well, again, no one has to tell me that. I can read electrical schematics. In this case, it's the internet fiber optic cables.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just it doesn't take too much beyond a rudimentary understanding about how electricity works. I mean, come on. So
yeah. We're at the last slide, George. We're at the final slide.
So backfiring. So we're going to conclude it here by: don't be surprised if this Wolfowitz plan, or maybe it's Victoria Nuland's plan, or whatever you want to call it, completely backfires, and you have a hollowed out, deindustrialized United States with a deindustrialized Germany against a growing industrial power of Russia and India and Russia and China. And then don't be surprised if South Korea and Japan don't jump into that, because that oil is right across the bay. Then don't be surprised if the Germans get mad at the whole thing, change their governments, and switch sides. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're potentially looking at here. So again, just to recap this whole thing, we just wanted to go over some different scenarios, some different possibilities. So going forward, people can see how we got here. We took one path. We could have taken another. But with the path that we've taken, what are the possibilities after that? So let's just end it here. And we'll just see how this shapes up going forward.
Perfect. George, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for stopping by yet again. Everyone, like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. Comment if you've got any questions. We're very attentive. Here's the music. Yeah. That's the cue. Everybody, have a good one.